I'm thinking yin with definitely more of a restorative flair. So I've got a couple of blocks and a bolster. If you just have one block, that's helpful. We can do all of this without it. You can make a bolster if you have an extra yoga mat, a blanket, you can roll it up. A blanket over a yoga mat works. Pillow, especially if it's a firmer pillow, that might be nice. We're not going to rely heavily on the bolster. I just brought it out because I know some of you guys have one. Yin is about holding the postures longer. Restorative yin, more of a passive opening, so we're not going to bring a lot of strength into this at all. It's definitely going to be more of a peaceful practice. So get comfortable. It's cooler too. You probably won't get all warmed up. So I've got on a sweatshirt. I put socks on. I would be comfortable if I were you. And actually, let's start that way. So come onto your mat in a comfortable position. I like the bolster underneath my knees, and I'm just going to lay on my back to get started. And this is just about, like we did yesterday, giving yourself a chance to arrive. So you could be in Shavasana. You could be, I kind of would like you to be on your back. So maybe Shavasana, soup to legs, knees bent, whatever feels good in your body. If you're going to keep your knees up, you might try taking the feet wide and letting the knees come together just so you don't have to support them. Okay. But yeah, find a comfortable position, and I'd say I'm going to talk less today, but we'll see. A huge aspect of yin practice is staying. For some of you, that will not be difficult. For others, it will be more challenging. I used to greatly resist this practice. I have over time come to enjoy it more and to understand that it's particularly for me a good counterbalance to the rest of life, because I tend to be very busy. So we'll come into the postures, and then you set the pose up, and you want to commit to being still, so not fidgeting. You can feel restless, right? You don't have to control your feelings, but in terms of acting out on it, I want you to the best of your ability to stay in the pose. You can come back to your breath again and again. Natural breathing, typical in yin. You might find that you fall into a slightly deeper breath, just because we are taking a restorative, a little more relaxed approach today. So from here, if you have your legs out straight, and just keep your left leg straight, we're going to bring the right knee into the chest and give it a squeeze. And then I'm going to have you extend your right toes up and bring the right foot to your bolster, to your mat. We'll do the same thing on the left side. We're going to hug the left knee in. And then an extension through the left toes. And we'll bring it. I'm going to keep that out of the way. We don't actually need it right now. From here, both legs go into the air. And you can support the thighs if you'd like. We're just going to circle the ankles. Those noises are completely normal. So if you have those too, it's okay. Go in both directions, like 3 to 5 times. Good. Let that feel good. And then we're going to point the toes and flex. So point and flex. Same thing, about 3 to 5 times. So we're just waking things up a little bit. Good. And then let your feet come back down. If you have a block, grab it. If you don't, that's okay. I'm going to take this block between my thighs, arms out to a T or a Y, and both knees are going to fall over to the right. You can keep your gaze over the left shoulder. So this is assisted supine twist. And we'll hold this. So yin, typically 3 to 5 minutes. So you don't worry about the time. I'll watch that. But you can close your eyes. Just like we did in every other practice, you're going to watch how your breath affects the posture. So keep breathing. You allow whatever happens to arise, pass away. Think of a really short but helpful quote in yoga to remember is that this too shall pass. If feelings of discomfort arise, if you get restless or agitated, just remind yourself that this too shall pass. It's really important to remember too when you're in a posture that feels wonderful in your body, a stretch, sometimes they feel kind of life-changing. Remember then too that this too shall pass, right? Just letting every moment be what it should be, allowing. And bringing your knees back through center. You can keep the block. Arms to your wide. You can shift so that your hips are stacked. So I'm going to move my left hip slightly over. Oh. Let my knees fall to the left. And turn my gaze over the right shoulder now. It's a little more stretch in the neck. Set the pose up for comfort as you first come in so that you don't have to move once you're here. You can release the block. Feel free to counter. Bring the knees to the chest. Rock it out a little bit. Again, we're taking more of a restorative approach. We'll do a more traditional yin practice another time. We are from here going to move into Supta Baddha. So you've got several options depending. If you have no props, you can simply take the feet together and the knees wide. You can also take the feet to the edges of the mat and the knees together. So listen to your low back there as you come into it. If you do have blocks, same option, Supta. Keep your blocks handy. So as we hold this longer, you may find at some point that you want to support the thighs a little bit with the blocks, and you can do that. If you have a bolster, you can add in a heart opening here. So taking the bolster right to the base of the spine, right to the sacrum, and opening up the upper body. This is pretty good, you guys. So if you have a bolster or blanket, and to be honest, if you had two blocks, you could take supported fish and get a similar effect. So that would be taking the block tall ways, right? And put one up here for my head. Take that right between the scapula. I'd say a bigger opening than you get with the bolster. And then Supta with the feet. So several options. I'm going to let you set it up and I'll start the clock, so to speak. Allowing the body to passively open. Such a great way to practice self-care. It's so good for you, but oftentimes we don't have the patience for it, right? Well, so let's go ahead and set it up, whatever variation you've chosen. Come into it now. Yin practice is, I think, very close to meditation. We're being deliberate with how we place our bodies, but we're focusing on stillness and staying and being with the breath. I think initially part of the reason I resisted this practice is because my mind would get so very busy as we held the poses longer. As I started to develop my own personal meditation practice, I realized that yin is really just an opportunity to practice being still with yourself and just being with yourself with whatever thoughts arise. Practicing non-judgment, just awareness, realizing that even if you sit, if you meditate, you sit every day, there are days when meditation feels fantastic, liberating and peaceful, and there are days when it feels like a struggle from the minute you sit down until the minute you get up, every single breath of it, and sometimes it's a combination. Yin is much the same way. You come into the pose, you may find that your mind is quieter, your energy is more peaceful, or you may find that the opposite's true. It's all good. So coming into the pose and just accepting whatever arises. Coming back to your breath again and again. yourself another breath. And then we're going to come out of the pose. If you're in Supta Baddha, you can use your hands to help the knees come back together. I'm going to have you come up through seated. Remove the bolster. You won't need it for these next couple of postures. We're going to come into cat-cow for a moment though, so just to hands and knees. And with your breath a few times through cat-cow, we're back bending. This is a nice counter. If you weren't, it just feels good. And it's going to help us transition to our next pose. So maybe one more breath there. Good. And then we'll make our way all the way down to our bellies. We're going to come into Sphinx pose. So elbows right underneath the shoulders, palms face down. A little compression in the low back is what we're seeking to find in this pose. If this feels like too much, you can move your hands forward a little bit. It'll reduce the compression. Conversely, I will give you a cue in about 2 minutes to extend into seal pose if you want more. So come into Sphinx. If you have a block, you can take that underneath your forehead. Give you someplace to rest your head while you're in the pose. Maybe a little taller. Oh yeah. So letting yourself be soft where you can be soft. Resist the urge to squeeze the glutes. If the compression in the low back is so much right now when we're starting that you're feeling the urge to squeeze your bone, then move your hands forward a little bit. Okay. If after we've held for a couple of minutes, you find that you need a little relief, then if you engage the muscles in your bone, it's going to relieve some of that compression on the low back. Okay, so come on in. Try something. You hold the pose. And again, I'll cue you in about 30 more seconds to move into seal if you'd like to. I was talking about this too shall pass. The idea of using practice to become more equanimous, to find more equanimity in your life. And that's, sometimes people think that's detachment or indifference, but it's really not. It's about being able to access this part of you that's peaceful and less reactive, even in the midst of difficulty or even chaos. Okay, you can hold Sphinx. If you want to press into your palms and take it up towards seal, we're going to hold that for a minute. So you can make that transition now. So, one of the things that I always think of when I think about equanimity is the serenity prayer, right? Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So they're saying that, being resigned to a situation that can and should be changed is not really serenity so much as complacency, right? While trying to change something that is just a fact of reality isn't really courage so much as foolishness. Therefore, we don't want to use serenity to deal with situations that really call for courage, and we don't want to use courage to deal with situations that really call for serenity. Good. Give it another breath, guys. Then as you come down, we're going to release the low back. So I'm just going to take my forehead to my forearms and bend your left knee out to the side like a funny four. It's just going to help release your low back just for a little bit. And then lengthen the left leg back out, bend the right knee the same way out to the side, and give yourself a few breaths on that side. back to the forearms. This is one of the more active postures we're going to take today. This is a pretty chill practice, but this is just a quad stretch. So bend your right leg and reach back with your right hand to catch your foot and start to draw the heel in toward the glute, just as far as you need to go with that. If you find that you have a lot of flexibility and the heel is getting very close or even coming to the outside of the hip, you can rotate your fingers forward and press. You have a little more leverage. But once you get it set up, guys, go ahead and let your forehead come back down to your forearms. So you're just going to soften into this. Come back to your breathing. It's what I like to call an edgy pose. If you're paying attention, if you're really dialed in and aware, you can take this posture to a place where you can tell that any more stretch would be too much, but any less would not be enough. So find that and breathe. It's going to shift and change. You may have to back off a little. You might need to add a little more torque, right? So just paying attention. I'm still reading to you. So I love this. It says the problem is that self-deception, denial, and our inherent prejudice make it hard for us to tell these two kinds of situations apart. Sometimes we trick ourselves into just accepting something that really is our responsibility to take care of because we're afraid of dealing with it. In that case, what we really need is courage, not serenity. Other times we are convinced that if we would just try harder, come on stronger, give things another chance, then we'll be able to alter some aspect of the truth to be more to our liking. We do this because in our perfectionistic drive to control people, places, and things, we believe that they really ought to be different than they are. So we're sure we just need a little more grit, a little more gumption to see things through. That's a situation where we don't actually need courage, but serenity. So it can be difficult to tell the difference between those situations as they arise. But this practice, I mean there's lots of them, but this one is actually really quite helpful in beginning to develop your awareness. Just showing up for feelings that maybe you don't ordinarily spend as much time showing up for. And hopefully letting part of your practice be allowing. So you become aware of those feelings and you're just allowing them to be, even if they feel uncomfortable, especially if they feel uncomfortable. Then your job in that moment is to come back to this inhale and this exhale. Right? You just do that as many times as you need to. Stay here for one more breath, guys. And then release the right leg. Ooh, we're going to switch it out. Catch the left foot. Find your edge. Let your head drop and breathe here. Give it 3 more breaths. Really dial into the sensation. When you get to your third exhale, you can release the leg. And we're going to move back to child's pose. You can go knees close together or knees wide. You'll definitely feel this as a counter to what we just did. Oh, you know, this could be supported as well. Looks like this, right? If you've got the bolster, a little less A little less counter, definitely a little softer approach. Or you can just take yourself all the way down to the mat. We're not going to hold it for too long. I'm going to have you take a side stretch from here in just a moment, but come into child's pose and give yourself a few breaths. Good, and then staying low to your mat, walk your hands over to the right side until you feel a stretch in your left side body. So you're gonna reach over, you can take your left hand on top of your right, but let your arms relax, just find the stretch and then hold there. One more breath on this side. And then you'll walk your hands over to the left side until you feel the stretch in your right side body. Again, you can take the right hand on top of the left. One more breath. Good, and then come on back to the middle. Work your way up to seated. We're gonna come back onto our backs. Whew. And we're gonna sit up for supported bridge. So again, ideally, block. And supported bridge can be low, medium, or high. You can use the block any way you like. I'm gonna go medium, so I'm gonna take this right underneath my sacrum. And then, so we're getting the opening of the front body just very passively. We don't have to engage the legs. There's not a lot of work happening here. If you wanna go higher, you can support the sacrum with your block higher. If you don't have a block, I would say come into traditional bridge, but not too strong, if that makes sense. So maybe if you normally rise up through here, maybe you're a little more passively hanging out. Good. All right, we'll stay here for just a little bit. So I wonder if most of us don't default more one way or the other, more towards serenity or more towards courage. Those are nice words for it. I think that, well, I've gotten better over time at reading situations, but I think my default is to try to make things happen, to definitely have more denial of truth and reality, and to think that if I just try harder, I can change things. It's not always true, and it's why the serenity prayer is really a great simple thing to keep in mind. That you need, yes, you need courage, yes, you need serenity, but primarily you need wisdom. And a lot of that simply comes from showing up and being aware, observing, taking in and learning, Remembering that when we judge ourselves, when we judge other people, all that does is get in the way. So being as supportive, as compassionate, as loving and empathic as we can, first with ourselves and then of course with everyone else. You can stay right here, guys. If you're on a medium or a low block, if you want to extend the legs and the arms, this becomes more of a hip flexor stretch. You still have the opening in the front body, but you may feel that now through your hip flexors. And we're going to do a hip flexor stretch after this, so if you're not wanting to change it up or you're not in a position to, you don't have a block, that's fine. Just stay with this for about another minute. I think being equanimous is a lot about changing your perspective and understanding how little control we actually have over circumstances in our lives sometimes. The only thing we can always control is how we respond. Good, give it another breath. We're going to remove the block if you've got one there. Let's take a counter. So knees to chest. You could windshield wiper if you have the feet still down on the floor. You just let the knees fall side to side. So we're just kind of opening and releasing a little bit after those holds. All good stuff. And then we're going to take a hip flexor opener from here. So I want you to take your feet to the edges of the mat and let your knees fall in together. So your knees are bent. You have your feet at the edges of the mat. Knees are together. We're going to let both knees fall to the right, and this will feel awkward, particularly in the right leg, or maybe the left leg. So you're going to lift your right foot now and place it on top of the left thigh, just above the knee. And you should now feel that stretch in your left hip flexor. And you can T or Y the arms, wherever they feel comfortable. Eyes can close. We'll hold this for just a bit. Another important thing to remember about equanimity is it's really quite contagious. If you've ever been around someone who has that energy, that calm, centered quality, and it truly is an energy, a vibrational sense that you get. It has a ripple effect on everyone around them. Thich Nhat Hanh tells a story about when boat people were leaving in droves and coming to the Philippines. They would put so many people in one boat. A lot of people lost their lives crossing over. It really just took one wrong move or, unfortunate weather conditions, different things that came into play. But he oftentimes met them at the beaches in the Philippines. So he got to talk to them about their experiences. And he said one thing that he heard over and over again is that if just one person in the boat remained calm, it tended to save everyone. We're going to release, guys, back through center. You can take your right foot off. Take your feet back to the edges of the mat, knees together. And now they fall left. Left foot lifts and comes to rest at the top of the right thigh. That's really something, but you think about it, if you've been in situations, I can think of small situations all the way up to rather big deals, right? Where you have that one person who just anchors everyone else. Right, we need those people. It feels particularly like we need those people now, but I think we need those people always. Yeah, it's something that you can cultivate in yourself. More equanimity, right? We're not all going to be Zen monks, but we can be more equanimous. Whether we've leaning in that direction through daily meditation or yoga or meditative walks, whatever it is. I think that there does have to be an element of contemplation, of stillness, of spending time with yourself so that you can really begin to recognize what your patterns are, what you tend to react to, and what you can do in those moments of reaction to move toward a more equanimous state. We tend to bounce back and forth a great deal between craving or wanting things and aversion and pushing things away. From our thoughts to our actions. So sitting and watching, sitting and observing your thought patterns can be incredibly enlightening. Just remember to be patient and to have grace and compassion for yourself. It's all a process. Release the left foot. Come back through center. One last time, a little counter stretch maybe. We're going to move into Shavasana. So shorter practice, 45 minutes I think is what I'm aiming for. So Shavasana can be as simple as stretching out on your mat now here in your most comfortable position. Sometimes in Yin we'll take pentacle, which is a little different. We'll take the legs wider and the arms wider, so you're really just opening the body up and letting the whole thing relax. If you have a bolster, if you have blocks, if you want to take the blocks under your ankles or the bolster underneath your knees, or come back into that heart opening variation. These are all options, guys. Just set your body up to be as comfortable as possible. Again, palms up on the floor, more receptive, but listen to your body. If it's going to serve you better, if it's going to feel more comfortable, more at ease to bring the hands in, then do that. Okay, but now we just rest. You close the eyes. Consciously let your muscles go and stay. You can stay right where you are. You can roll to one side or the other if you'd like. Maybe turning the head from side to side. And as you're ready, beginning to make your way up toward a seat, you can take your time. Find a nice strong seat. Sit bones rooted, spine tall. Hands can come to heart center wherever they feel comfortable. We'll take just one cleansing breath together. So deep inhale through the nose. Open your mouth and thumbs can lift to forehead center. We'll take one more breath in together. And all together we'll say namaste. Thank you so much for practicing. It's Garth Stevenson playing in the background. If you like the music, guys, he's amazing. You should check him out. I hopefully will see you again soon.